On this episode of What's Going On with Shipping, President Trump likes big boats. He cannot lie. Are we sure we want to say that? Oh, it's lyrics to a song. Okay. All right. Hi, I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's episode. So we're talking about an announcement just came out in President Trump's cabinet meeting regarding the release of 8 tankers, maybe 10 tankers. I'm not gonna lie, it was hard to tell in this cabinet meeting what exactly happened and when, but somewhere in the range of 8 to 10 tankers were released by Iran through the Strait of Hormuz, and there was a discussion also about the Iranian toll. We're going to look at all that and give you an update on the Strait of Hormuz. If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so be alerted about new videos as they come out. All right, let's head over to President Trump at his cabinet meeting today.
They said to show you the fact that we're real and solid and we're there. We're going to let you have 8 boats of oil, 8 boats, 8 big boats of oil. This was 2 days ago. And they'll sail up tomorrow. That was 3 days ago. And I didn't think much about it. And then I watched the news and they said, a very good anchor actually, happened to be Fox. But I watched it and he said, something's unusual happening. There are 8 boats that are going right up the middle of the Hormuz Strait. 8 big tankers are going loaded up with oil right through. And I said, well, I guess they were right, and they were real. And I think they were Pakistani-flagged. Yes. And I said, well, I guess we're dealing with the right people. And actually, they then apologized for something they said, and they said, we're going to send 2 more boats. And it ended up being 10 boats. All right. I hope I haven't screwed up your negotiations. But
all right, that was a lot right there. And I'm trying to, in my head, to figure out what exactly he just said and what exactly happened. 8 tankers were sailing straight up the Strait of Hormuz, according to Fox News, and then 2 more tankers sailed. They said they were going to let them sail 2 days ago, and then they sailed yesterday, which was 3 days ago. It's a lot, I know. Let's go look at the data as put out by the Joint Maritime Information Center, and then we're going to take a look at marine traffic. All right, here's the Joint Maritime Information Center report as of 26 March. We're still at critical levels in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, and the Gulf of Oman. 21 vessel attacks since 1 March, only 1 vessel through over the last day. So they did not have a report yesterday for 24 March, so they're actually filling in 2 days worth of material. But I want to go back at least 3 days here, back to 23 March. On 23 March, there were 4 vessels, 4 tankers that sailed eastbound, outbound, out of the Strait of Hormuz. And then there was 2 cargo ships, 1 inbound, 1 outbound on the 23rd. On the 24th, 1 tanker was outbound, no vessels inbound at all. And then on the 26th, just 1 vessel, and that was a westbound vessel, an inbound vessel, into the Strait of Hormuz. So we don't have 8 or 10 tankers at all. I mean, we've had 5 reported over the last 3 days. If we go back even another day or so, there's only 2 other ones there for the whole week. And then if we look at attacks, we have not seen any attack on any vessels since the 23rd of March. All right, so what do we have going on right now in the Strait of Hormuz that we know for sure? First, we have this story from Lloyd's List. Iran shepherds friendly bulkers through Hormuz. Evidence that the Islamic Republic is allowing its own trade through the Strait of Hormuz. Increase in westbound transits after weeks-long lull. Other bulkers that have waited in the Arabian Sea are now on the move towards the Gulf. So this story reports 4 bulkers have sailed into the Strait of Hormuz, heading up the Persian Gulf to offload grain for Iran. So I pulled the data up here on marine traffic. 4 vessels in question: the NL Jupiter, the Christiana, the Ardvan, and then the Giacometti. And all of those vessels are now up here at the very northern reach of the Persian Gulf. So we have the bulkers going through, we know that, but what about the tankers that the president is talking about? Now, a couple things he said about those tankers. Straight down the middle of the Strait of Hormuz, Pakistani-flagged, heading outbound. So once again, let's go to marine traffic. This is 23 March at basically 0000 hours UTC time. And I'm going to advance it myself through here. So here come a series of tankers heading toward the toll gate. The toll gate we talked about is here between Larak Island and Kisham Island. This is the center of the strait. If we come over here to the nautical chart here, this is the vessel traffic separation scheme. This is the Strait of Hormuz. This is the normal traffic. Ships that come up here is in Iranian national waters, and this we believe is the toll booth. This is where the ships come through to get inspected, to checked, and we believe that Iran is charging somewhere in the range of $2 million to go through here. As we watch this, we'll see a grand total of 4 vessels kind of appear here, and this is the 4 vessels right here. The Bright Gold, the Lenore, the Jag Vassant, and the Pine Gas. Jasmine is inbound. Caspia up here, actually, we'll see that ship actually move back in. We think this is spoofing. The ship is actually still in the Persian Gulf. And then we have another vessel coming out here. This is the 5th one we see. This is the Gas Lucky. 4 vessels heading out. That corresponds to what we saw on the JMIC report for 22 March, and 1 tanker outbound on 23 March. So we're not seeing 8. And we're not seeing 10 tankers go out, and nothing is going through the middle of the strait as reported by the president. So the tankers in question, so the first tanker here, the Bright Gold, she is a Panamanian-flagged vessel, 27 years old, 45,000 tons, outbound, heading to China. Jag Vassant is an Indian flag vessel, 20 years old, is an 83,000 cubic meter liquefied petroleum gas carrier. She's heading for India. The third vessel is the Pine Gas, also an Indian flag vessel, also an LPG carrier, 20 years old, 80,000 cubic meters. Ship is heading to no clear destination, although it does list as its destination India ship and India crew. That is something we saw happen quite a bit during the Red Sea with the Houthis. Now, the 4th tanker was the Lenore. This is a Curacao-flagged crude oil tanker, 22 years old, 300,000 tons. That vessel cleared the Strait of Hormuz. We last have a position on her off of Fujairah, but that was a couple of days ago. She has turned off her AIS. We haven't had an update on her in 3 days. And then that 5th vessel, the Gas Lucky, was a Panama-flagged vessel, 26 years old, 22,000 cubic meters. She's heading outbound and heading for Singapore. All right, so a little confusion about what's exactly happening here. So it made it sound like, according to the president, that Iran has released, and he used the past tense because he talked about the fact that, some Fox News presenter said ships were coming through the Strait of Hormuz, that Iran has released a series of tankers, Pakistani tankers, but that does not appear to be the case. We just don't see that based on the evidence. And the Joint Maritime Information Center gets their information from the U.S. Fifth Fleet, from the United Kingdom's Maritime Trade Operations Office. That's pretty good, reliable sources here that have been accurate in tracking vessels in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. So again, I'll let you read into it what you want. The other news we got coming out is this right now. A couple of key stories. This one, the Houthis signal Red Sea revival as Bab al-Mandab emerges as the next Flashpoint. We have not seen anything out of the Houthis to date yet. But a quick reminder, we have a huge fleet of vessels sitting in the Red Sea right now off the coast of Yanbu because of that Saudi Arabian pipeline that is ramping up from 1 million barrels per day up to 5 million barrels per day. If the Houthi rear their head and start attacking ships, that's going to cause a major disruption. You're talking about reducing the size of ships that can go up there because now you either have to run through the Bab el-Mandab, cheers, or you have to go all the way around Africa down the Suez, which means you can't be bigger than Suez Max to get down there. That's a huge problem. If the Houthis appear again, that's going to be a big problem. Meanwhile, the U.S. has announced that the Iranian Navy chief was killed after years of threat seizures and Hormuz disruption. Rear Admiral Alireza Tangsiri, the head of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' Navy, was killed in an Israeli airstrike. Central Command confirmed this on Thursday in a sharply worded statement that framed his death as a major blow to Iran's maritime capabilities. I will say this, I know many people who sail as merchant mariners mariners in the world, and they have been harassed by the IRGC for a long time. I can remember sailing through the Persian Gulf in the 90s, and the IRGC would be there. I have no love lost for the IRGC. I'm sorry. They are a harassment entity that goes out and just does that with shipping. They threaten them either verbally or at times with weapons. We've seen them seize vessels, and I know I'm working on a video right now that tracks the history of both the United States and Iran seizing vessels. Listen, the breakdown in the freedom of the seas has been going on for a long time, and we're going to talk about that. But the IRGC's loss of their commander is key because the IRGC has been degraded. We've had this report, these periodic reports from Admiral Brad Cooper over at U.S. Central Command talking about the attrition of the Iranian Navy and the IRGC. This is going to be key for reopening up the Strait of Hormuz, which takes me to the second point that President Trump talked about today in his press conference. He was asked specifically about the toll booth and mines in the Strait of Hormuz.
Excuse me?
Should Iran be able to charge a toll for the Strait of Hormuz? They're charging some vessels to go through.
Oh, yeah. Well, should they be able to? I mean, they shouldn't be able to, but they're doing it a little bit. I don't know. Look, their capability is a lot less than it was 2 weeks ago. And with every week and every day, frankly, it gets less and less.
Oil tankers going through the Strait of Hormuz, is that a condition to move that 5-day deadline?
Well, we don't want anything impeded. We want ships to go through. We don't know that they've dropped any mines, by the way, because we blew up all their mine droppers, right? We blew up every one of them. They're going to have to take them out on a rowboat or something. I don't know how the hell they get out there, but we don't really know. You might speak to it. We don't know. There could be a few of them out there, but that's a lot. You know, if you have $1 billion ship and you get hit by a mine, it's not the greatest thing in the world. So if you think, the problem with that's not like you've decimated a military. If you think there may be a mine, that's a bad thought, and it stops things up. I mean, the problem with the issue of the Hormuz Straits is this: we've decimated them as a military. No Air Force, no Navy, very few rockets left. We blew up so many. Hard to manufacture them. Same thing with drones. The leadership is gone. The problem with the Straits is this: let's say we do a great job. We say we got 99%. 1% is unacceptable because 1% is a missile going into the hull of a ship that cost $1 billion, right? So 1% is we can't. If we do a 99% decimation, that's no good.
So if you've heard me speak on this topic at all, you know I use the 99 and 1% issue all the time. It's very funny to hear the president talk about that. So you got to wonder a little bit. Maybe he's got too much time in his hand if he's watching me. Probably a staffer or something. But I agree. I mean, one of the problems is, I mean, you heard the president say there's no indication of mines in the Strait of Hormuz. I think that's very key. Reading all the capabilities, I think that's great. But the president makes the very apt point here that as long as there's a chance, it's the Dumb and Dumber defense of shipping, as long as there's a chance that you're going to go hit something, that's going to deter shipping to go through, which means the next step has got to be the introduction of U.S. military forces into the Strait of Hormuz. That's the next step. One of the things that is very clear is that the U.S. moved out literally every naval vessel from the Persian Gulf. There's been images showing the littoral combat ships, the Coast Guard cutters that are normally based there. There doesn't appear to be any U.S. Navy presence at all in the Persian Gulf. I have a little bit of a problem with that. Would have been nice to tell, I don't know, the U.S. ships, merchant ships that are in the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf, hey, maybe you should leave, get out beforehand. That would have been nice. I'm just saying, it would have been nice for you to do that. However, I think the next thing we're going to see is a U.S. naval presence pushing into the Strait of Hormuz. However, what we're seeing is they're waiting to do this until they can get as much of that threat capacity down against them. All right, last couple of stories here, real quick, just updates. They're not actually with the Strait of Hormuz or the Persian Gulf, but they're very indicative of what's going on else around the world, particularly regarding Russia, the Black Sea, and the Baltic. So this story by G Captain Mike Schultz. A Turkish-owned tanker carrying Russian petroleum products was struck overnight by a suspected uncrewed surface vessel in the Black Sea in what appears to be an escalation. Martin Kelly, the head of advisor at EOS Group, a great follow, by the way, on both LinkedIn and Twitter, if you have the opportunity, said the sanctioned tanker El Truro had loaded approximately 140,000 metric tons of Sibolite petroleum product at the Russian port Novorossiysk. I never say this right, and I apologize. I've got to get this town down on March 23rd and was bound for India when it was hit after midnight. The strike reportedly targeted the vessel's engine room, causing flooding and leaving the ship disabled. So this escalation between Ukraine and Russia is something going on in the background. Not a lot of people are watching. We just saw a series of drone strikes up against oil facilities in and around Leningrad by the Ukrainians, and now we're seeing this strike take place. Add to this, we get this statement out from the United Kingdom, another G-Captain story. The United Kingdom is stepping up its campaign against Russia's so-called shadow fleet, authorizing military and law enforcement teams to board sanctioned vessels transiting British waters. The move, announced as Prime Minister Keir Starmer attended the Joint Expeditionary Force Summit in Helsinki, gives UK forces new authority to interdict vessels suspected of breaching sanctions tied to Russia's oil trade. All right. We have seen France, Belgium, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Estonia, variety of countries involved in either the Baltic with anchor drags or the Belgians, the British, and the French on stopping sanctioned tankers. This seems to be a big escalation. The problem here is that Russian oil right now is banked by the United States to help keep oil pressure down because of the shortage in oil in the global market caused by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. You've seen the United States desanction Russian oil. They have desanctioned Iranian oil, which is, I'm sorry, it's batshit crazy. I don't know what else to say about it than the idea that you're desanctioning the oil of the country you're bombing. I don't understand it. I do understand it because what they're trying to do is keep gas prices domestically down and diesel prices. The problem is globally, it's not working. We're already seeing this. Pakistan, India, Philippines, and Australia are experiencing fuel shortages, and this is going to become pronounced as crude oil gets rarer and more difficult to obtain. Even using Yanbu, for example, yes, you're going to be able to get 5 million barrels of oil out of it, but you're not getting the full 20 million that you're normally getting. Plus, it takes longer to load that. It's a longer distance. It adds ton miles. This is going to cause pressure. There is a clock ticking right now as global oil reserves, both afloat and ashore, are being dipped into. We're sucking that straw on it. And when those begin to disappear, we're going to run into a period of time when there's not enough oil to go around. And that is the critical moment. When is that? I don't know. I wish I knew. I can't give you that number because I'm not as smart on that with ashore, afloat stocks, everything, but it's weeks away before we hit that. And that is why you're going to see the next big evolution here is to get that strait open. I thought it was interesting the president didn't push back very hard against the Iranian toll, but I think what we're going to see is an effort by the Navy, Marines, and whatever it takes to push open the Strait of Hormuz. I don't think you see a targeting of Karg Island right now because that's way up the strait. It's not even the Strait of Hormuz. It's up in the Persian Gulf. But I think the strait is the focus right now. If you open the strait, you uncork the bottle a little bit and you can start flowing it, but you're going to have to get into the Persian Gulf to defend all ships because it's not just the strait, it's the entire 500-mile length of the Persian Gulf. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do that? You get the super thanks button down below or head on over to Patreon and become a monthly, yearly subscriber. I don't know how. I don't have a job in some government administration somewhere. Seriously, what was the Biden administration? What was the Trump administration doing? I'd be a great asset in a political job. I'm kidding. I do not want a political job. I so not want a political job. Quite happy where I am. Professor here at Campbell University in beautiful North Carolina and running my plucky little YouTube channel. Until our next video, this is Al, signing off.